Assalamu alaikum. We are back again with our third session of the January 2026 online teachers training sessions. Today, our topic is from data to action using formative assessment to improve learning. And to conduct this, we have Ms. Mehwish Hasnain. So let me give you just a brief introduction of Ms. Mehwish. Ms. Mevish has a master's degree in international relations and political science and a PGCE certification from Canterbury Christ Church University, UK. She brings a strong academic foundation in modern teaching practices, and she has a diverse experience in some of the renowned schools of Karachi. She is very passionate about sharing practical, student centered strategies that inspire and empower educators to create impactful learning experiences. So, over to you, Ms. Mevish. You may start your session now.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Farheen. Thank you so much for inviting me to that lab and to this platform. How are you all, everyone? I hope you all are doing well. So let's start our today's session. Let me share my screen. So is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it is visible.
Oh, perfect. So let's start our today's session, which is on using formative assessment to improve learning. In this webinar, we will explore and understand what formative assessment is. We will learn and explore practical classroom strategies, and we will understand how feedback improves learning. Now, let's start with this one word. When you hear the word assessment, what comes to your mind? I would really appreciate if you can use your chat box. When you hear the word assessment, what comes to your mind? Exam, right? To evaluate, to check students' understanding. Test, absolutely. So, when we hear the word assessment, the first thing that comes to our mind is test or exam. But assessment is not only about tests or exams. There are three types of assessment which we will be learning today: assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. Now, let's briefly understand what assessment as learning is. Assessment as learning is when students reflect on their own teaching, right? Now, assessment for learning. This assessment for learning happens during the lesson. It's a process of evidences for use by learners and their teachers to decide whether the learners are in their learning. And the third one is assessment of learning, which actually happens at the end, and it is an activity to measure, record, and report on students' level of achievement with respect to specific learning expectation. Now, today our main focus is assessment for learning, which is also known as AFL. And this is the place where the real change happens. Now, assessment for learning, when we talk about assessment for learning, and we usually talk about summative assessment for as well, which is assessment of learning. So today in today's session, we will be focusing completely on assessment for learning, which is a formative assessment, and it occurs during the lesson. It is low stake and can adjust instruction. Now, formative assessment is not an event, it's a process, and it is an ongoing it's an ongoing process. It happens in the learning and not at the end. Now, in this process, you're monitoring your students, you're giving instructions, and providing an ongoing feedback to your children. Now, let's just understand with an example. Now, you are teaching long division to your children. You just walk around and notice that some of the children are making mistakes. What will you do? Will you continue a lesson, or you will pause the lesson and you will address those mistakes, and whatever this that's happening, the errors, you will address that immediately. Now when you're addressing that, the mistakes which the children are making, when you're addressing it immediately and you're correcting them and you're making a small adjustment to your teaching, that's going to save a lot of time for your reteaching. Now, once you are done and you feel that the children, you don't know that whether they have understood, and you just continue with the lesson, and afterwards you realize that, oh, after checking, after the corrections or whatever, you realize that this is the point where the children were not clear. Now that's going to be more difficult to reteach that topic again. That's going to be more time consuming, and more it's going to take more efforts, right? But uh, उसी वक्त मिस्टेक को पकड़ना, और उसी वक्त उस जो चीज़ है जहाँ पर बच्चे स्टक हो रहे हैं, जो कॉन्सेप्ट उनको क्लियर नहीं हो रहा, उसी वक्त देन एंड देयर उसको रेक्टिफाई कर देना, that's going to save your time. Now it helps us to answer two important questions. Now, what are those questions? What do my students understand right now? And what do I need to change in my teaching next? So this adjustment can be made, and at the same time, this is going to help students to understand that what they are learning, where they are struggling, and what they need to improve. Now, what is formative assessment? Now, when you are actually introducing a lesson, your very first thing you start with is the learning objectives and the success criteria. Learning objectives is that what you want your children to learn, right? And it's an ongoing process, that how to get there, where the learner is now, and where the learner is going. So it's kind of a formative assessment is a circle, and it's an ongoing and continuous thing. It happens during the lessons, and it helps teachers adjusting their teaching and helps students understand their learning. Now, what formative assessment is not? This slide is very important because there are many misconceptions. Now, after introducing a topic, after explaining, you are done with everything, and you give a worksheet to your children, and then you mark it, and then you give it back. So after marking, there is no point, right? The marks they have already been given out. Now, it's not formative assessment is not only about tests or quizzes. It's not always written. It's not for grading, and it's not going to be an extra workload. Now, when it becomes formative only when we use the information to adjust teaching and not to just give marks. In fact, when used correctly, formative assessment often reduces workload and it prevents bigger problem later. Now, why do you think formative assessment is important? Why it matters? Now, this is an ongoing cycle, assessment cycle, that you set a formative assessment, then you gauge the student's understanding, and then you address the learning gaps and misconceptions. And this learning process keeps on continuing. So, why formative assessment matters? Formative. Now, think about this. Now, let's just understand with an example. Now we have a class, and in class we have different type of children. Some are like very confident, some are very quiet. Now you are explaining a topic, and some students are like grasping, I mean, they're not understanding the concept, and the ones who are confident, they will just immediately ask that, miss, what is this, we are not getting it, can you please explain us again? So we will get to know कि अच्छा इन बच्चों को समझ नहीं आया, and I should reteach this certain subtopic or certain concept again. But कुछ बच्चे ऐसे होते हैं that they are very quiet, ठीक है? They won't tell you that they are not getting any of the concept, right? So here comes the problem. अब अगर उन बच्चों को कुछ समझ नहीं आया, so how are you going to get to know कि this child the one who is a quiet child, and you know that that child is not going to ask if he's not clear with anything, how you will get to know कि उसको ये चीज कॉन्सेप्ट समझ में आया है या नहीं. Now there this at this stage rises the problem. अब जब उसको चीज वो चीज समझ नहीं आई है and you will keep on explaining, you will continue your teaching, तो उसकी जो एम्बिग्विटी है, उसका जो प्रॉब्लम है, वो वहीं का वहीं रहेगा. और उसको you won't get to know कि उसको ये चीज समझ नहीं आई, और वो चीज आगे बढ़ती जाएगी and it keeps on piling up, right? So now we assume, हमें तो ये लगेगा ना कि we will assume that that child has understood, but when you will use your AFL strategy, you realize that that child is confused, and now this is the time that you can support that child before that confusion grows further and further. So formative assessment, it helps us to catch misunderstanding early before the learning gaps become learning barriers. And it allows us to and it also allows students to support what they are learning, not after they have failed. And you will also notice that it's going to improve your students' confidence. It also supports differentiation, and it leads to better learning outcomes. And most importantly, it allows us to make informed teaching decisions rather than guessing. So if you feel that, you know, maybe not one or two child, but a lot of children are finding something difficult, and by using the AFL strategy, you get to know that okay, this is the problem. So what will happen at then and there, you will make some adjustment to your teaching, you will make some adjustment to your lesson plan or your strategy, and that's going to help you to make some informed teaching decisions. Now let's see what is going to, when formative assessment is done well, the impact on students is completely different. It's really powerful. Now now the kids, now the children, they will exactly know what they're expected to learn, because the learning objectives, the learning goals will be clear to them, and they will understand what success looks like. They will have a better understanding of success criteria, and they will not just focus on what the answer is and let's just copy the answer from my partner or something like that, but they will understand that what my teacher wants me to learn in this lesson. So they will understand what success and what they will it will also help them to increase the engagement. They will be more confident and they will be more engaged in that certain lesson, because they will feel safer. They will feel like it's okay to make mistakes, and mistakes is just a part of learning process, so it's okay. There is nothing to be feel embarrassed of, but it's okay, it's fine, because that is going to help them to take ownership of their learning. Now let's understand what are the key formative assessment strategies are. Now the formative assessment doesn't mean that you need to use a dozen of new techniques or anything, but it actually relies on the following three strategies, which is questioning, and the questioning should be effective questioning, meaningful feedback, and peer and self assessment. Now let's understand with each one with the real classroom examples. Now you have introduced a lesson, you have shared the learning objectives, you have discussed the success criteria. Now you have actually explained the lesson. Now here comes the questioning part. Now questioning is one of the most effective formative assessment strategies. And how? Now see, instead of you have explained something and now you don't expect the students to just give you the answer. You are asking question to check their understanding. Like you will be asking, how did you get this answer? Why did you choose this method? Is there any other way of answering this question? So now these questions helps the students to to think and not to just focus on getting the answer. And when you're asking these good questions, this is going to help the children to reveal their misconception. This will help the children to think that what what might what the most what can be the effective ways of doing or solving the certain question. And it also helps the students to engage more. Now let's understand this uh, with an example. Okay, you have explained a topic, और उसके बाद you are asking the questions. Now it actually depends when you find that the children are answering that question wrong or they have some ambiguity. So you will be there to explain them then and there, instead of it gets further piled up. Now once you have asked the question and you are getting that, okay, this is the problem, and there this area needs to be uh, you have to work on this area. So there comes the feedback. Now this effective feedback is very important. And what is an effective feedback? The effective feedback is that it should be clear and specific, linked to the success criteria. It should focus on improvement, and it should be given quickly in time, right? Now you have given some question, like let's understand with an example that in maths you have given your kids some question and they have solved it, right? Now, what feedback are you going to give them? Very good, excellent. Now, this is not an effective feedback. Instead, you can say that your working is correct, but you should check your final answer, or maybe, you know, you should be more careful while doing the addition or something like that. So, this is you're giving a specific feedback that where the problem is, that this step is not clear and this is going to be done that way. So, just good, very good, not done well is not going to be is not going to be an effective feedback. An effective feedback tells the student exactly what to do next. Now, let's talk about peer and self assessment. Peer and self assessment help students become independent learner because they are assessing themselves or maybe their peers. And how they will be able to assess themselves and their peers? By using a checklist, by using a rubric, traffic light system, which we also know, which we have been doing a lot in our classes, and self reflection questions, that they are reflecting on their own understanding, that what they have done well and how what needs to be done better, right? When students assess their own work, they learn to evaluate and improve their learning. Now, if digital technology is available, digital tools can enhance formative assessment even better, right? Now, if you talk about Google Forms, excellent way of assessing the children understanding. Mentimeter, like if you have understood, if you have explained a topic, and just to get an idea that how well your kids have understood, maybe you can share a Google form with them, and then eventually you will get to know that where the concept, where the problem is, and what they have not understood well. Mentimeter, excellent platform where you can just post an open-ended question, and the children will share their understanding, their views, their thoughts. And Padlet also works for the same purpose. Kahoot, excellent platform where you can get a lot of quizzes, and quizzes.com. And on these platforms you will get built-in quizzes, so you don't have to work really hard. The concept, you're just introducing a topic, whether it's an English lesson, it's a science lesson, it's a math lesson, the quizzes are already there. You just need to share it with the children, and you will get the instant feedback, which is going to help to save your time, right? Now, there are some strategies which we are going to talk about in today's session, and how you're going to incorporate those AFL strategies, that is assessment for learning strategies, in your classroom. Now, as we have discussed earlier also, that assessment for learning strategies, it's not necessary that they should be, AFL should be at the end of the lesson. It's not necessary. It is an ongoing process, and it can happen any time during the lesson. It can happen, you can have AFL right after introducing the concept, at the end of the lesson, or maybe in the middle of lesson, anywhere where you feel that you need to know how much your children have understood, or how well they have grasped the concept. So let's talk about the first strategy, which is exit ticket. Now, what is this exit ticket, how you can use it? Exit ticket can any, I mean, it happens when you can use it, you can use it at the end of the lesson, just to assess that how the children have grasped the concept, how well they have understood. You can ask your children to write one thing that they have learned, and maybe one question they still have, or it can be a one question, or maybe it can be, anything that will give you an idea about the understanding of the topic, right? That how well they have understood, or where the problem is. Now, mini whiteboards. I'm sure many schools must be having these mini whiteboard strategies. They must be using this, and or maybe if it's not in your if it's not in your books package and everything, you can ask the children to bring mini whiteboards to school. Now, this is very helpful, because what happens, especially in all the subjects, I think using mini whiteboards is very helpful. That you just give a question on the board, and to have an idea कि हर बच्चे को कितना understand हुआ है, कितना clarity है concept की, you can ask the students to write on the mini whiteboard. And you can wait for, just give them like 1 minute or anything, and then you can ask your children to raise the mini whiteboards. And when you will see, you will get to know that which child has written the correct answer and which child has written the wrong answer. And then and there, you can rectify the mistake of the child which has, which has not gotten the concept correct, or which has got the wrong answer. So it is an ongoing thing which you can have anytime during the practice or during the lesson. Now, the third strategy is, which we are talking about, is think, pair, and share. Now, what is this think, pair, and share? When you ask a question and you tell your children to think individually, you just assign some minutes, you'll give them some minutes to think, then they will ask your children to discuss that answer with their partner. So they will share their thoughts with each other, and in the end they will share it with the class one by one, right? Each pair is going to share their understanding with their classmate. So in this way, you will have multiple ideas what the children have understood, and it gives a it's going to give children a very meaningful way of discussing and understanding each other's perspective. So it can, when you can use it after a new concept. Now, traffic light cards. This is a very effective AFL strategy which could be, which could be used in the pre-primary level, that you can ask children to color the three cards with red, yellow, and green colors. And after every question, just to have an idea of their understanding, you can ask them to, show the green cards. Like if they have understood really well, they can show the green card. If they have like if they don't have that clarity, they can show the yellow card. And if they are not clear with anything, they can show the green card. So anytime for quick check, you can use this strategy. 1 minute paper. Now, this strategy, where the students are going to write most important learning point in 1 minute. Now, it's kind of a wrap up thing which you can have at the end of the lesson, where you can ask, the children to write in 1 minute whatever they have understood, or whatever they have, they have just a brief summary of the lesson. So that's a 1 minute paper strategy. Now, peer marking, how you can use this strategy. Now, this strategy is very helpful and the children, they really enjoy assessing their peers. They really enjoy when you ask them to mark their peers. And it's not that randomly they're marking their peers work, but before that you have to give them a checklist or a rubric. So students mark a partner's work using a checklist or rubric, and this could, you can use this after an activity or after explaining any concept or any topic. 2 stars and a wish. Now, what is this 2 stars and a wish? Now, you will find these the templates of 2 stars and a wish strategy on internet, so you can use these templates as well. And after every lesson, you can give out these templates to the children, where for 2 stars they have to provide two strands, and for one wish they, need to write one improvement point. Now, this could be used by the children themselves, or this could be used by the teacher also. So it's a really nice thing. Or maybe they can, for 2 stars, they can write what two things they have understood well, and one wish, that what they want to, where they want to work more, or where, they really wish to learn more about. So it's very effective, and it can be used for giving feedback, or for, assessing their own self. Okay, mistake analysis. Now, this is a very effective strategy where students identify and correct errors in a sample answer. Now, this is kind of a misconception check. The question is there with some errors in it, or uske baad you will ask the children to identify that error. Now, here comes the problem. Jab error, the children will be able to rectify the error when they will have the clarity of the concept, then only they can rectify the error. So जब तक concept की clarity नहीं होगी वो उस error को pick ही नहीं कर सकते. So this misconception check helps a lot, especially in maths. And this when you can use it after practice, after every lesson. Concept map. Now, this strategy could be used after the topic introduction, where children are making a concept map and they are drawing connections between their ideas. Now, self assessment checklist. It is also very interesting AFL strategy where children assess themselves by a rubric or any kind of checklist. So they take students take of success criteria that they have made. So eventually they will understand that okay, I have understood this well, and by looking at the success criteria or the checklist, they will be able to assess themselves, and they will get to know that okay, this is point where this is what I have learned, and this is the area where I need to work more on. So it is kind of a independent during independent work. Now, the next strategy is KWL chart. So, KWL chart is very effective and it can be used in any of the subjects, especially in science, where the children they draw a chart and the abbreviation for this K is what the children want to know, what the children know about the lesson. W is what the children want to know about the lesson. And L is what they have learned. So this K and W column, that what the children already know about the topic, they will be filling in that column. What they want to know about, that also going to be filled up before the lesson starts. And when the lesson has been explained and it's over, then the children will fill up the chart, the column, sorry, where they will write that what they have learned in the lesson. So it's going to it will be kind of a progression, that what they already know about the lesson, what they want to know, and what they have learned. It's kind of a self reflection. Now, PPPB, which stands for pause, pounce, and bounce strategy. Now, how you can have this strategy? It can you can just have this AFL during the questioning. And how? P means that you will pose a question. Now, the children will pause for a minute for thinking about that question. Then you can randomly pick up any child and that pounce on a student, that child is going to answer that question. And in the continuity of that answer, that will be bounced to another student for extension. यानी एक बच्चे ने उसको इसका आंसर किया, उसके साथ ही उससे आगे का जो भी है उसकी continuity, or maybe it can be an open ended question. Then the next question, the next child is going to answer that same question, and it's kind of a very warming activity, warm up activity. The children are engaged in very effective and very healthy discussion. So the next one is, let's talk about next one, which is odd one out, where students identify the odd items and explain why. It's also kind of a the everything from the same category is there, and just one, also it's one odd item is there and they have to pick up that odd item. So this is also very helpful with the kindergarten or maybe the pre-primary children, that this helps them pick up the to have the concept. Like, let's suppose if we are talking if we talk about any lesson in science or maybe in English, so usme you have given them all from the same category and one item which is odd, and they have to figure that out. So this actually helps them to understand, what is about their concept, and it could happen during the concept review. Now, the next strategy is quick quiz, where you are going to give them three short questions to check their understanding, and you can have this during the mid of the lesson or maybe at the end of the lesson, or wherever you feel that you need to know that how well your students have understood the concept. So it's just the three questions to check the understanding. Now, five finger check, which is also known as fist of five. Now, with the fingers from 1 to 5, the children will show their rate of understanding, that how well they have understood the concept. And this can happen, you can use this during the lesson or maybe at the end of the lesson, just to get an idea that how they are rating their lesson understanding, how are they rating their understanding of the lesson, right? The next one is thumbs up and thumbs down. um, there are three thumbs up for that they have understood the concept really well. Maybe they can also show the thumb, that it's in the middle. And okay, I just need to see who has raised the hand. Just give me a minute, please. Okay, sorry. So yeah, and thumbs down is that they are not clear with the concept. Now let's talk about, and this you can use it anytime. Now the next strategy is round robin, where the students take turns in sharing the answer in a small group. So if you can use it after a discussion or an activity. So round robin is that you have pose a question, and the children are one by one taking their turns and sharing their answers, so that this actually you will get to know that each and every child will get the turn to answer the question. And it's kind of a continuity that every child is getting a chance and sharing their views and thoughts and understanding. So it actually, it actually also, it's kind of a strategy that also is also helpful in active learning. It's also an active learning strategy as well. Now, meet and greet, this could be done as a warm up or review, where the children are sharing one learning point with the partner, and maybe you can clap, or you can give them any signal, and then they will rotate in the same class and they will move to another partner, and with that partner they are going to share that one more learning point. So it's kind of a recap of everything whatever you have explained, because each person is going to share a new their understanding. So it's just kind of okay, हर बंदे की अपनी अपनी points से जब आपको मिलेंगे, so you will get a summary of whatever has been explained by the teacher. So I would really appreciate if you can take a picture of these strategies, because these strategies are going to really help you when you are planning your lesson. And it's just not ke you just, because we do these we do use these strategies in our class, but sometimes it happens that when we are planning a lesson, and we just want to add a full strategy to it, we don't get what to have. So this is kind of a summary of many strategies that you can incorporate in your class. And you just like har dafa, it's not that you keep on let's suppose I feel that five finger check is very is I've been using this quite often in my class, but every time using the same strategy won't be appreciated. I don't think you can use different strategies. And because children, they get really bored of one thing. So these are the multiple strategies which you can use in your classroom settings. And this children, but it's going to be something new for the kids as well, and they will enjoy your teaching and learning, and they will be more confident about sharing their understanding. So now I'm just going to wrap up this session, and I'm just going to share that it's teaching, we are the teachers, and we are not only there to deliver the content, but it's a big responsibility to understand that what the children have learned and where they are actually struggling. So it's a teacher's responsibility. Going to the class and just explaining and coming back is doesn't fulfill our duty anymore. So we need to have an understanding. And I would it's just like it just remind us that whatever the children are making mistake, or every question or every information, it's going to help us to plan more effectively, to teach more intentionally, and it's going to also we can also support our learners in a more meaningful way. And I don't think that we can change everything at once, but sometimes just small shifts, small efforts, a better question, or a thoughtful pause, or a timely piece of feedback, it can make a great difference in your in your teaching. So as you return to your classroom, I would invite you to choose just one strategy to try and observe how it changes your students' confidence, their thinking, and even your own teaching. So let's just wrap this up that in this session, we have understood so far that what formative assessment is a continuous it's a continuous process, and feedback drives learning, and small strategies lead to big improvement. And thank you for today's session. You have been a very wonderful audience. Thank you so much. Over to you, Farheen.
Yes, thank you so much, Mavish, for conducting the session. And I hope that participants may have collected some strategies. Yes, you will get an e-certificate. I'm going to paste the link in the chat box now. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can write in the chat box since Mavish is here. If you have any questions, you can write in the chat box. And the certificate link is also pasted in the chat box. As usual, you will receive your certificate when you will fill this Google form, and your certificate will be emailed to you. Those who are here in this meeting will get the certificate link. Okay, so Mavish, there is a question. I want to know the most suitable AFL strategy for higher grades.
So for higher grades also you can use 1 minute paper strategy, or maybe the older children are excellent when you give them a checklist and you ask them to self assess. Self assessment strategy is an excellent strategy for higher grades, because they can they can follow the rubric well. They can assess they can assess and figure out from the rubric के rubric के through वो ज़्यादा अपने आप को कर सकते हैं, अपनी understanding को rate कर सकते हैं, mark कर सकते हैं. So rubric is one of the best strategy. KWL chart for higher grades is an excellent AFL strategy. For healthy discussion, PPB strategy you can use in your class. Round robin, just may you're just posing a question and the students are taking, so it's kind of a dialogic questioning and open ended thing कि आपने एक open ended question दे दिया, and the children are taking their turns and sharing their answers or their understanding. I think 2 stars and a wish, very helpful strategy for higher grades. So yes, anything else? I hope yeah, you're getting this. Oh, thank you so much, Zara. I'm so glad to know that this session has helped you and given you more information about these AFL strategies. And thank you so much, Ikra. I'm glad that you find this session very informative. Thank you so much.
Yes,